over here.
It was electric, all the kids were excited, all the kids that again had a chance to kind of build that first initial concept all the way through, from that initial idea all the way to the physical making of the t-shirts. I think again, um, it's just a powerful tool, like giving students entry and access. I think is the key component, because they have this in their everyday life. They see it, but again, I don't know if they get it in this direct way. So the fact that we had this workshop where they were able to kind of press their logos on their shirts and to actually have a finished product, I think was a way to close that learning loop. So we went from just that initial conversation, presenting them with that information, to again that final step where they're walking out with something that they created. But what I noticed the most was that they were proud. They were very proud, and not only were they proud, they wanted to share that with their friends, and they did it as soon as they left this class. Some of them wanted to come back and print another shirt, or they wanted more. So I think that's the key to education, is finding that spark, finding what students like. Because once you have students engaged, then that can go anywhere. That'll lead you any place. But without that level of engagement, without that initial step, you really can't go any further than that. And so that's what's missing in education. Like I see a lot during the course of my day and over the years. Um, and we need more of that. We need more engagement. And I think we got to find um, opportunities for that. I mean, it's necessary, like I said, and shout out to Principal Warner for even having the wherewithal to open that. I really got to go there because it wouldn't have gotten this far, but for her having the vision to see that this is something that the school needed, and we're in the Bronx, South Bronx, the birthplace of hip hop. What better thing than to have hip hop for freshmen, in the borough and in the spot where all of it came to be in the beginning. So shout out to Principal Warner for that, and to your point, I wish I had this class, because a lot of us don't learn about entrepreneurial endeavors until too late, if at all. And we got to get out of that 9 to 5 mentality, and that paycheck to paycheck mentality. And so if we can tap into that with the youth earlier, then that's a win for everybody. I mean, each session, I think there was a lot of knowledge dropped and a lot of information. Um, I mean, all in the beginning, what I liked even particularly was the intake sheet that you have first to even get your ideas down. I thought that was powerful. Asking those questions, getting students to think about their brand in a way, in an entrepreneurial way, I think was very powerful, because again, they took ownership. They took autonomy over what it was that they wanted to create. And so those questions, like what colors do you want your logo to be? What is the name of your brand? Who is your target audience? Like just getting them to really think in a bigger way, I think was very powerful. Um, I know the logo design piece was really powerful as well, because again, it gave opportunity for students to take what they wrote down on paper and bring it to life. And I think that was another powerful moment for them to see the next step in their own evolution, as well. I just think even the book itself, um, is just a powerful tool. I know that the first time that you gave it out to students, you know, they instantly started going through it and just started delving right in and working on the chapters without you even really giving them instructions to do. And I took note of that also, just to kind of see, because students are not going to do that if they're not really interested in it, and they were really engaged. So the layout of the book, the 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 way that you're asking for, those comprehension questions at the end of those chapters, getting students to really think about what they learned. I think those are real powerful pieces. Having that material to be able to give students also, I think is powerful. The fact that they were able to have something tangible in their hands, and to take it with them, just all key components, I think, that makes the program successful. So yeah, those are the key pieces. And like I said, every session there was always like some gems that were powerful, but those were the few off the top of the head that I could speak to. Yeah. So in that section, we have a couple of students who are what they call overage and undercredit. And so a lot of times those students are disengaged, they're distracted, and they kind of check out in terms of the normal academic stuff because they're either so far behind or they just are not in line with the regular trajectory that students should take. And so that particular section had two students that fell into that category. And what I was able to witness firsthand, uh, again, is something powerful because these are students that typically are not engaged in their academics, but with your workshop, they actually came to class. They actually paid attention. They stayed after at times to kind of get some additional information and some insight to talk to you. And had you not been here, I wouldn't have known what those interests were in terms of, what they saw in terms of their future, what they saw as the next steps. And I had been trying to get them to think about that before you came. And so to have this opportunity for you to be here and to see them lock in, it was kind of it was just a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to kind of be able to now know what they like and now to be able to kind of supplement that after this program to hopefully encourage them to keep going with what they started because they created some dope images, they had some dope ideas, and a lot of times those students particularly they get overlooked because they're not the best students or they don't have the highest GPA or the best grades. They're not necessarily thinking about college. So at times they can get written off. Um, but each student has value, and this is what's important: is finding where everybody is. Yeah, that's how I know. Yeah, because that's how you know when you have something good, because those are the students that are hardest to reach. Um, and so that's powerful because up until this point, there really hasn't been anything that has captured their attention or allowed us to even see if they're even interested in anything. So to see that change and that you just mentioned is profound in my eyes because every student is important to me. Like even if he doesn't have the highest GPA, even if he's not going to college, my biggest thing is, we don't want students wasting their time. You don't get that back. And there are many different pathways to success. Everybody's not meant to go to college. Everybody's not going to follow that track, but you got to find your purpose. You got to find your goal. And so I know that with this program, he was able to lock in and find something that he's passionate about, and that's something that's going to help him financially down the road if he chooses to kind of continue putting his full attention into it. And that's what it's all about for me as an educator is making sure that everybody finds their purpose and recognizes the value that they have because he has value again being overage and under credit, and at times he doesn't get um, the respect, I guess, that he deserves, and he can get overlooked at times because you usually tend to focus, or the norm is to focus on the kids that may be doing well or that may want to do the traditional thing, and then to be honest with you, schools don't even offer entrepreneurial classes anymore in the way that they need to. It's almost like I think it's a failure on the part of the curriculum on a large scale because it's such an important piece to student success and student life. Um, and so to be able to offer that again, like I said, is something that is important, and I hope we get to continue it next year because again, like I said, I saw the value with Angel. Um, and there was another student in that class, Yomar, who's Angel's friend. Uh, he was another one that we saw interest. They actually were working on some of that together. And those two particularly stuck out to me because of the fact that again I hadn't seen that, and I've been here and I've watched them in other classes. I watched them with other teachers, and like I said, what I saw here I hadn't seen. So uh, definite shout out to the program for that. Yeah, I think sharing your personal narrative, um, being able to kind of be authentic and not just come from a place of do what I say, not as I do, but the fact that you were able to walk the walk, talk the talk, and you were knowledgeable. I think that's really what it boils down to. Students were able to sense your authenticity, and I think that's what transferred uh, to them in being able to do that. And you talked about things that they see every day. They're consumers. They consume. all types of products. They're on social media. So these things that they learned in here in terms of marketing, advertising, logo design, how to even create your business to start, your LLC, using AI on, to help generate, some of the things you need for your business, not just the artistic part, but just also some of the other business tools that you can use to help maximize your hours during the day, caught their attention. And I think it allowed them to kind of see things that they normally see in their day-to-day life, but through a different lens. And I think you made it tangible for them to say, okay, I could actually do this too. And it made it a possibility. Like, again, before they can even achieve it, they got to be able to see it. And I think the fact that you were able to show it clearly, was helpful. And then you were transparent not only about your successes, but also your failures. And I think that's important too, letting students know, it's not going to be easy. Anything that you want or anything that's worth having, you have to work for. And it's about believing in yourself. We tend to look outside of ourselves for validity, but you can create, a dope piece of merch that can, make you, an overnight millionaire if you really, put your heart and soul into it. And so I think those were some of the components that help get them engaged, keep them engaged, and really want them to kind of keep going and participate next year if we can be fortunate enough to have you back. And I learned a lot. Like, I'm sitting here, and that's why this is good, because this course is universal, even though it's called Hip Hop for Freshmen. Um, it's really hip hop for everybody because of the fact that I am entrepreneurial in that respect, just in terms of my pedagogy and in my uh, particular field of education, because I'm trying to make a name for myself in education. There are not many educators that come from the Bronx, because I come from the South Bronx. I come from the same exact neighborhood. And so for me to be back where I grew up, 40 years later, giving back, is important. And that's a part of my entrepreneurial pursuits, because while I'm in the system now teaching, the goal is to do this independently and to be able to kind of take what I've learned and to be able to turnkey that into, my own brand, and helping to establish that. So some of the jewels that you dropped for them, I took note as well in terms of how I would want, my own logo, my own business. How am I going to represent what it means to be Dr. Downing? You know, what messages will I need to help be successful? So definitely it resonated with me as well, as even as an educator, as a teacher. And so again, to have it as a part of the curriculum or to be able to push in, I think is very valuable. Like I said, normally, you know, I'm very selective. I'll be very honest with you. Like, I get asked, we were asked whether we wanted to have this workshop, because they can't force teachers to stop instructional time. But when I heard about what it was and the premise, um, again, I didn't have any qualms about losing an instructional day, because it's really not losing an instructional day. Like, they actually are learning, and that learning, we can carry it on throughout the week, because we do talk about it during the week outside of the Fridays that we meet. And so those are other points of um, engagement that I can have with students outside of the days that you meet with them. But because we have that moment, it's something now that I can use to build that bond. And I think that is critical. Like, so many students don't have that connection. They come to school and they're just disconnected. They're just going through the motions. They may not even like school. So that's a really big piece. So that engagement piece, that excitement, that them being proud, builds their self confidence, their self worth, um, and it just allows them to take up space. And I think now when they look, at clothes, or they look at things, hopefully now they'll be able to kind of look at it through a different lens, and it won't be something that is so um, far off from them. You know what I'm saying? Now it's something that they can see. Even the big name brands that they may wear, now they kind of can understand how even that came to be. And so now with that, it allows them to know that they can actually do it also. Overall, um, I have to say I was thoroughly impressed by the program. First of all, instructional time is important. So, and this program was an asset and a value in getting students to kind of um, step outside their comfort zone, be able to expand their world knowledge of what they actually believe is possible. And I think in order for them to be able to achieve great things, they have to first be able to see it. And this program gave them an opportunity to do that, to understand what it is to be an entrepreneur, to understand other avenues that might be open to them that they may not have had a chance to even consider. So, hands down, this was a very valuable program, very valuable experience. And I wish we had more time. That'd be one of the things that I'd say, you know, if we had to go back and try to do things, it would be to give us more time to be able to delve in. Um, but yeah, very valuable, very worthwhile to have the program.